Hello and welcome to the next video where we'll be talking about OpenStreetMaps, one of the best free data sources for anything geographical. And so first, classically, we'll start with the question of what even is OpenStreetMaps? And OpenStreetMaps is a freely and publicly available data set or database of geospatial data. It also provides full-on rendered maps, as you can see below, but also has all the information on the roads, paths, buildings, parks, forests, mountain peaks, points of interest, and much, 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 much more. So it's like full-on map basically, but with everything in it available and sourceable. And the cool thing really is that it's maintained and updated by volunteers. So usually actually quite up to date, depending on also where you are in the world. But really some amazing job being done there. So it is actually relatively high quality data. It's also used by many companies and researchers professionally out there. It's not perfect, so there will always be things missing, but that's also, of course, the case with the real world as well. Any sort of mapping data will always, to a certain degree, be outdated, and OSM is really quite good at this, at being up to date, and of course, the fact that it's freely and publicly available is just amazing. And so many things out there are powered by this. If you want to use OpenStreetMaps data yourself, you can do so. But the data is actually quite complicated because, of course, the real world is as well. If we just look at even just in Munich or something, there's so much going on, right? Like we have all these streets. Then for a street, it might have bicycle paths. It might have multiple lanes. There might be a tram going through the middle of it. All this information. There's shops at every corner of it. All the buildings have house numbers, different heights, different numbers of floors, like all this information. And it all is just pressed into this OSM data. And again, like to certain degrees, this is there available. So for example, not for every map in every country, for every road in every country, we might know whether or not it has a bicycle path. But really a lot is in there, even certain things like directions, because of course, for example, a street might have like a bicycle path in one direction, not the other. Like all these things make just the data really complicated. And this is of course then like also reflected in the data. Thankfully, it's quite well documented in the OpenStreetMap wiki, which you can find on this URL or just Googling for it. It really describes how these things are labeled in there. Although also, again, I have to say it's not like perfect. Some of the things are really still quite complicated and you have to like work around it. But still, it's a really good resource. And you can actually just download full or partial export of like the complete OSM data. Like you can just go there and like download basically like a map of the world, which to me is like amazing that we can just do this for free, just available. I think really a good resource. And if you use this for like in a data science context, probably the most useful way of using OSM is via the Overpass API. So this API allows you to easily query OSM data via the API. So you can kind of write your requests on how you want to filter data, and then it's going to return you the filtered data from it. Here, for example, you can see what did I showed you? Oh yeah, so these are museums in Amsterdam. Again, it's a bit of a weird syntax, but they have this nice online tool that like just kind of generates the syntax for you, and then you can just fill in what you need. So for example, you can show that, what you want is like a museum, what kind of museum, and you can just adjust it to like fit your needs. And then it's not like crazy complicated. So for this UI, you can just play around with it at overpass-turbo.eu. Please use this responsibly because it's running on some publicly available servers. So of course, if you try to like get, I don't know, all the museums in the world, it might overwhelm their API. But again, I still think it's really cool, like doing these quite complicated queries. Of course, you can just do this in Google Maps, but I mean, getting actually access to data from Google Maps is really, really hard because they don't want to share it with the world. And the fact that you can just do this via this interface, and also there's a matching R package, which I'll talk about later, is actually really amazing and it allows you to do quite some cool things, right? Like now you can use this data to either plan your next Amsterdam trip or something, but also to maybe get the density of museums in cities, right? You could run this over the whole country, over Germany, see which city in Germany has the most museums. It's actually quite easy to answer this question with this API. Probably in like, I don't know, 20, 30 lines of R code, you could actually answer this question, which is, in my opinion, really, really powerful and really quite cool. Yeah, and lastly, again, brief attribution for the graphics I'm using here. See you in the next video.